All right, let's dive deep today, exploring the world of INTJs. They're fascinating.
Oh, absolutely.
These thoughtful tacticians, as they're called, by 16 personalities.
Mhm.
And we're going to unlock their secrets today
Yeah.
using 16 personalities and Personality NFT as our guides.
Okay.
So get ready to unlock the secrets of the mastermind. Are you ready?
I am so ready. What's always captivated me about INTJs is their drive to master anything and everything that catches their interest.
It's true.
They're not just gathering information, they're building these systems of understanding in their minds.
Yeah, it's like they have this internal library of knowledge that's constantly expanding, right?
It's a great way to put it.
And they have a plan for everything.
Uh-huh.
So let's break down this acronym. INTJ stands for Introverted, Intuitive, Thinking, Judging.
Okay.
Can you walk us through what each of these means for someone with this personality type?
Okay, let's start with introverted. Now, while not necessarily shy, INTJs recharge their energy through solitude. They prefer deep one-on-one conversations to large social gatherings, and intuitive is where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
INTJs rely heavily on patterns and abstract thinking, less focused on concrete details, more on the big picture, the what-ifs, possibilities.
So if sensing is about taking in information through the five senses,
Yes.
intuition is about making connections and seeing what might be,
Right.
even if it's not immediately obvious, right?
Precisely. That's why INTJs are often drawn to strategic thinking and problem solving.
Okay.
They envision multiple outcomes and plan accordingly.
Fascinating.
Next, we have thinking. INTJs prioritize logic and objective analysis over emotions when making decisions.
Okay.
This isn't to say they don't have feelings, but they tend to compartmentalize.
It's fascinating how the different functions interact.
Yeah.
So their intuitive side helps them see the possibilities.
Yes.
And then their thinking side steps in to analyze and make a rational decision.
Exactly.
Wow.
And finally, we have judging. INTJs value structure and organization. They're planners who thrive on having a clear path forward. They like to have things decided and settled.
But hold on, there's another layer here. We have to talk about the INTJ subtypes. INTJA and INTJT.
Yes.
Like two sides of the same strategic coin. What makes these subtypes different?
You're right. It comes down to how they handle their emotions and respond to stress. The INTJA, or assertive INTJ, is generally more confident, less prone to self-doubt.
Okay.
They tend to roll with the punches and adapt easily. Think of them as the calm in the storm.
And then we have the INTJT, right?
Yes.
The turbulent INTJ.
Exactly. The INTJT might experience a wider range of emotions, higher highs and lower lows.
Okay.
They can be more driven, perfectionistic, and sometimes get caught in overthinking loops.
So same core personality, different ways of approaching challenges and processing feelings.
Yes.
It's really interesting how one letter can make such a difference.
Right.
Now, let's go even deeper. I know we have to talk about cognitive functions. I always find this part so intriguing. Could you unpack how these functions work together in an INTJ's mind?
Of course, it's like understanding the operating system of the INTJ. Their dominant function is introverted intuition, or NI.
Yep.
That's the one they use most naturally. And this is where their ability to see patterns and potential outcomes really shines.
Almost like having a built-in prediction engine.
Right.
They just know things.
You could say that. Their auxiliary function, extroverted thinking, or TE, helps them structure their thoughts and take action.
Okay.
It's about logic, efficiency, and making things happen.
Okay, so Ni sees the possibilities, and Te helps them organize a plan to get there.
Yes.
Like a strategic 1-2 punch.
Exactly. Now, the tertiary function, introverted feeling, or Phi, is where their personal values and ethics come into play.
Okay.
It might not be as outwardly visible as Ni and Te, but it's a powerful force in their decision-making.
So it's like a silent compass guiding their choices, even if they can't always explain it.
Precisely. And finally, we have their inferior function, extroverted sensing, or SE. And this one can be a bit of a challenge for INTJs, as it's about experiencing the present moment through their senses. They might find it harder to just be in the moment without analyzing or planning.
So if their intuition is about the future and possibilities, Say is about grounding them in the here and now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's quite a balancing act.
It is.
But how do these functions develop over time? I'm curious about how an INTJ evolves from childhood to adulthood. Personality NFT talks about a metamorphosis.
Yes.
That sounds pretty dramatic.
It really does capture the transformation. In phase I, which is childhood, INTJs are already demonstrating their independent nature.
Okay.
They're curious, they question everything, and they love puzzles. Imagine a child who's always asking why and needs to understand how things work.
Definitely sounds familiar.
Right.
So they're already flexing that introverted intuition and thinking from a young age.
Absolutely. Then we have phase 2, adolescence and early adulthood. Their extroverted thinking comes to the forefront. They're intensely curious, they dive deep into their interests, and they love problem solving. This is where they might excel in academics or find their passion for specific fields.
So they're taking all that information they've been gathering with their intuition and putting it into action with their thinking function.
Exactly. It's a time of intellectual exploration and building their own systems of understanding.
Okay.
Now, phase 3, which typically starts in their 30s and 40s, is where things get even more interesting. Their dominant and auxiliary functions are well developed, leading to potential career success and a shift in priorities.
I'm sensing a but here.
Yeah.
It can't all be smooth sailing, right?
Well, as INTJs mature, that tertiary function, introverted feeling, might start to play a bigger role.
Okay.
They might reevaluate their values, seek deeper meaning in their work, and prioritize relationships differently. This can be a time of great personal growth, but also potential internal conflict as they navigate these shifts.
Like a whole new layer of self-discovery.
It is.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the core traits of an INTJ, the subtypes, and how their cognitive functions develop over time.
Yes.
But I want to know more about how this all plays out in their everyday lives. What are some hobbies and interests that really draw INTJs in?
INTJs are drawn to activities that stimulate their minds and allow them to explore new ideas.
Okay.
Think strategy games,
Yeah.
where they can anticipate their opponent's moves and plan several steps ahead, or complex puzzles that require a systematic approach and a keen eye for detail. Anything that allows them to use their logic and intuition, really.
Yeah, it's like their minds are always working, always searching for patterns and solutions.
Absolutely. And they're not just passive consumers of information. INTJs are driven to apply their knowledge, create something new.
Okay.
They might be drawn to writing, where they can build intricate worlds and explore complex themes, or to technology, where they can design innovative systems and solve real-world problems.
Speaking of problem solving, let's talk about careers. I'm guessing INTJs aren't the best fit for a job that's repetitive or lacks intellectual stimulation.
You're reading my mind.
Okay.
INTJs thrive in careers where they can use their analytical skills, strategic thinking, and creativity. Think fields like science, engineering, architecture, or even entrepreneurship.
Wow.
They're often drawn to roles that involve leadership, innovation, and a high level of autonomy.
So a job where they can be the mastermind behind the scenes, strategizing and leading the way. But what about the work environment itself?
Yeah.
What kind of setting brings out the best in an INTJ?
They value efficiency, independence, and intellectual freedom.
Okay.
A micromanaged environment, or one filled with constant interruptions, would be a nightmare for them.
Yeah, I can see that.
They need space to think, to strategize, to implement their ideas without unnecessary constraints.
Okay.
A role that allows them to focus on big picture thinking and problem solving is ideal.
It sounds like they thrive on a challenge. But work isn't everything? Let's talk about how these masterminds navigate their personal lives.
Okay.
I'm especially curious about relationships. How are INTJs generally perceived by others?
Well, first impressions can be tricky.
Yeah.
INTJs might come across as reserved, even aloof.
Okay.
They're not always comfortable with small talk or expressing their emotions openly.
Right.
But once you get to know them, you'll discover a depth of loyalty, insight, and wit that's truly remarkable.
It's like there's this hidden world within them that only a few get to see.
Exactly. And those who earn their trust are in for a treat.
Okay.
INTJs are incredibly supportive friends and partners. They're always there to offer a listening ear, a thoughtful perspective, and a helping hand.
Yeah.
But they also need their space. They value independence in their relationships, and they appreciate partners who understand that.
So it's about finding that balance between connection and autonomy.
Yeah.
That sounds like a dance that takes a bit of understanding. What about friendships? What kind of people gravitate towards an INTJ, and what do they look for in their friends?
INTJs don't have a huge social circle.
Right.
They're much more about quality than quantity when it comes to friendships. They gravitate towards people who can engage them intellectually, share their curiosity, and respect their need for solitude.
So someone who can talk about ideas, debate theories, and won't be offended if they need some time to recharge.
Exactly. And they're fiercely loyal to those who earn their trust.
Okay.
They're not afraid to challenge their friends, but they're also incredibly supportive and always there to offer a helping hand.
Okay, now let's dive into the realm of romance.
All right.
What are INTJs like as partners? I'm imagining long conversations about philosophy under the stars and maybe a strategic game or two thrown in. Is that on the right track?
You're definitely picking up on their vibe.
Okay.
INTJs approach romantic relationships with the same depth and intentionality they bring to everything else in their lives. They're not interested in superficial connections or fleeting romances. They're looking for a partner who can match their intellect,
Mm-hmm.
challenge their perspectives, and engage them in meaningful conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who can keep up with their mental agility and share their thirst for knowledge and growth.
So a meeting of the minds is a must.
Absolutely. And once they find that special someone, they're incredibly loyal and devoted partners.
Wow.
They take their commitments seriously and are always striving to make the relationship work.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, they might need some encouragement to express their emotions openly.
Right.
Grand displays of affection aren't really their style.
Oh.
Their love runs deep, but it's often expressed through thoughtful gestures, acts of service, or simply by being present and supportive.
It's that classic actions speak louder than words approach.
Exactly. And, it's fascinating to consider how this plays out in their parenting styles. What do you think an INTJ parent is like?
I imagine INTJ parents are all about fostering independence and critical thinking in their kids.
Yeah.
No helicopter parenting here.
You're spot on. INTJ parents encourage exploration, problem solving, and a love of learning.
Okay.
They create a nurturing environment where questions are welcomed and curiosity is celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
They're the type of parents who will engage in deep conversations with their kids about everything, from science to philosophy.
It sounds amazing. But I'm also picturing a household with a well-organized schedule and maybe a color-coded chore chart.
Right.
Am I getting too stereotypical here?
Well, there's probably some truth to that. Remember, INTJs value structure and organization.
Mm-hmm.
They like to have a plan, even when it comes to family life.
Okay.
But don't mistake that for being rigid or unfeeling. They love their children deeply and are fiercely protective of them. They
Right.
just might express their affection in less conventional ways.
So maybe instead of gushing praise, they're more likely to offer a thoughtful observation or a piece of advice that shows they truly understand their child.
Exactly. And they'll always be there to support their children's pursuits, offering guidance and encouragement every step of the way.
Yeah.
But remember, even with parenting, it's about finding that balance between structure and freedom.
Okay.
INTJ parents want their children to be independent thinkers and make their own choices, even if it means making a few mistakes along the way.
It's about equipping them with the tools to navigate the world, not dictating every step they take. That's a powerful approach to parenting. But, we've been talking about INTJs as if they're all the same.
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge that there's a spectrum of individuality within this personality type.
You're absolutely right. It's so important to remember that the INTJA and INTJT subtypes are just two ends of a continuum.
Okay.
And even within those subtypes, there's so much variation.
Right.
Some INTJs might be more comfortable expressing their emotions, while some INTJTs might be incredibly resilient and adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes down to the individual and their unique life experiences.
It's a good reminder that these personality types are frameworks, not boxes.
Yeah.
They help us understand ourselves and others better, but they don't define us.
Mm-hmm.
We're all complex individuals with our own strengths, weaknesses, and unique ways of being in the world.
Well said. And that's what makes life so fascinating, isn't it? This diversity of personalities, perspectives, and experiences.
It's true.
The key is to approach each other with curiosity, empathy, and a willingness to learn.
I love that. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of INTJs,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I think it's important to remember that INTJs are much more than just masterminds or robots. They're complex individuals with a deep inner world of thoughts, feelings, and values.
Mm-hmm.
They might not always wear their hearts on their sleeves, but they're capable of forming deep and meaningful connections with others.
And they bring so much to the table.
Absolutely.
Their strategic thinking, problem-solving skills, and unwavering determination make them incredible assets in any field. They're the innovators, the visionaries, the ones who see the world differently and challenge us to think outside the box.
Exactly. So if you're an INTJ, embrace your unique strengths and never stop learning and growing.
Okay.
And if you know an INTJ, take the time to understand their perspective and appreciate the depth they bring to the world.
Mm-hmm.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
That's such a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of INTJs. It's been a truly fascinating journey.
My pleasure.
And remember, the information we've shared today is based on insights from 16 personalities and Personality NFT.
Yes.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and those hearts